just like that. Yo. This life and this game is mine. Yep, it's my time. Peep this mic dominant, intelligence is prominent. Dropping all sorts of ill gems on your conscience. Many years, I lay patient, just waiting, just building, just laying the perfect foundation for this ill structure. Now I run the court similar to the Ruckers.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to They Ain't Ready, the podcast about race and gender. I am your host, Tracy Walker. So, today, I know I've talked about a little bit that this was going to be unmasked, unfiltered, and you know I love to have those conversations that many are not ready to have. And so you're probably wondering, what does unmasked, unfiltered look like, experience with They Ain't Ready? So much been going on in the realm of EDI that I just need to do this podcast just to talk about it. So much is going on, so much is being said, so much communication, and I normally don't go on social media rants or anything like that. That's not my MO. I like to have intellectual conversations about these topics and making sure I have my homework done when I start talking, because a lot of people get on social media platforms, and this is not to come at nobody, but if you're going to come with talking about something and use data, history, or anything like that, make sure you got your facts. And so a lot of things have been communicated throughout the internet about a couple topics that's been going on. So this episode is the unmasked, filtered episode where the host speaks. I didn't need codes for this episode because I want to let you know that the thoughts and opinions on this episode are of the host. Normally we hear the other way around. People say this is not of the company and it's just not a reflection. This is the opinions of the host. So, you know, right or wrong, if you don't like what I say, that's fine. If you do like what I say, thank you. You know, cheer me on, whatever way you want to. I'm okay with having those conversations. And these are opinions and this is my perception, but it also has some data to back it up. So let's dive into this conversation. So what is on the host's mind today? What does she want to talk about? What got her in an uproar? Well, a couple topics has kind of got my attention in the past, what I'll say 6 to 8 weeks. Let's take that. So what's kind of been getting on my mind, the first topic is, let's talk about the Supreme Court ruling in regards to racial conscious or bias, it depends on how people feel, admission practices that were ruled with affirmative action that were ruled not to be challenged and a challenge upheld by those that challenged them. So let me give you a little history. So first of all, many people do not know what affirmative action is. They hear the term, and I even saw a definition that upset me. There's a definition from the Oxford Dictionary that said that affirmative action is favoring one group. And that's not what affirmative action is. Way more than just favoring. Affirmative action is not just, oh, because I like you. Favoring means that, you know, have some partiality to the person because of your relationship or your connection or who you are. Affirmative action came about because there wasn't an even playing field for people of color, especially African Americans. I'm going to talk about that. So let's get down to what affirmative action is. Affirmative action was given the name as encouraged participation of women and minorities in education, the workforce, military, and other arenas. That's what it originated from. A lot of times we talk about it came from the 1961, and it did. There was what we know now as affirmative action, but it actually started earlier in the 1920s. We had President Franklin Roosevelt, who actually started introducing this term with an executive order he issued 8802. And in that order first federal contractors to provide full and equitable participation of all workers in defense industry. So that's kind of how it initiated and started, and is morphed into different areas. And so when we talk about that ruling that came down from the Supreme Court, it deals with our college admissions. So people wonder, everybody's in uproar. And you know, I have my feelings about that. I don't want to think I'm not concerned. Not concerned where I'm worried. Concerned. Worried and concerned are two different things. I'm not worried. I'm concerned. The reason I say that is because a lot of times we don't understand what this could have impact for us as people of color in other areas. This deals with college admissions. And I want to read exactly what came out of this and what the majority opinion was written by Chief Justice John Roberts. That is particularly important to me as we have this discussion about this topic, okay? So what did he say? He said that the system in place, both programs, so to those that don't know what the both programs are, there was a group called the Students for Fair Admissions. They're a conservative advocacy group, brought up a case versus Harvard, and University of North Carolina about their practices. Sorry, North Carolina University, their practices. So that up. So what that was is they said that the practices were unfair, it was biased, it was going against the Asian Americans and other nationalities. It was struck down by other courts and it kind of came back to the Supreme Court. So when he's saying both programs, he's talking about those particular programs in those two cases that came up. He said both programs lack sufficient focus and measurable objectives warning the use of race, unavoidably employing race in a negative manner, involving racial stereotyping and lack meaningful ending points. We will never permit admission programs to work in that way, and we will not do so today. So, racial stereotyping. So this is what was saying, that this was allowing for racial stereotyping, that people of color needed a handout. You know, that's kind of what the terminology and the objective and focal point has kind of been spun from this. Okay? It also says, but the court did not rule out race entirely in admission programs, adding nothing prohibits universities from considering applicants' decision on how race affects the applicant's life, so long as their discussions are concretely tied to a quality of a character or unique ability that the particular applicant can contribute to the university. So what they said was, this ain't right. There's not enough support for how Harvard and University of North Carolina does things. So we're saying that that is not a reason to have racial conscious admission. But we're not taking it away that you cannot use it as long as it deals with the quality of the character of the individual and unique ability that they bring to the table. And I want to let you know, this is why some time affirmative action was in place. We had qualified candidates. We had people that were educated. Everyone had quality, same level, were not being let in based on race. So now you're saying as long as they have unique quality and characters, you must let them in. You should let them in, but the race should not be a consideration. The fact that race was even brought to the table about this topic was because we were not getting into rooms. You know, we were not able to come in there. We all know the historical context of why there was even an opportunity for us to start. We had HBCUs because we were not allowed to get education or not allowed to enter different programs and different things. So HBCUs were started. And now why HBCU enrollment continues even on, because some students feel that they want to be with their own people. I agree. Some students are not able to get in other schools. Some educational experience that they feel is better than HBCUs. I'm not here to debate HBCUs versus PWI, but I'm saying there's a reason why we have HBCUs and why it was even founded. So you saying that now we don't want to look at race, we just want to look at the character of the person, but the character of the person was never being considered in the past, and why affirmative action was around. So why we are in an uproar about this, why I'm concerned? Because you know this can trickle down to other areas. This does not stop for somebody bringing a case. This helps us precedent. What precedent does is when someone brings another case, they can refer to this ruling as why it's justified for the case they're bringing, which means it gives validity to their argument that this affirmative action should not be any other place around in the areas of other aspects. That deals with K through 12, that deals with employment, that deals with military, that deals with so many aspects. So it has a possibility of a trickle-down effect. Why do we need to be concerned? We need to be concerned of who we have in places that can take this ruling and consider that this is what needs to be done, and we need to get away from these processes at the universities. I'm appreciative that I'm at a university that stands behind making sure there's equal opportunities for all backgrounds, but every institution and every area does not believe in that, and we have some people that believe that we should not have these opportunities, and some say they feel that HBCUs are inferior, so they should go over there. And I don't feel HBCUs are inferior. I feel HBCUs do set you up for to be contenders in the industries that they are, wherever the industry the person is going into. But I do see that some people want to go to the Ivy League schools for what reasons they have. I'm not here to justify why you want to go to a school and why you don't go here. What I want to talk about is why we have to look at the concern that goes on when people make these rulings and decisions. Why is concerned about how we vote? If you understood how many people Trump put into the Supreme Court in his time frame, you will understand why we are having votes like this. People's politics, people's belief, people's ideology comes out a lot when they vote. Though they represent a people, their vote is a lot of times based on their ideologies, not their constituents. So we know we have areas within our United States that people believe one way, but the people that are at the table having conversations. It's very important you watch who's at the table speaking for you. Because people at the table speaking for you don't always have your best interest at heart. Which is why you need to be more vocal and not passive, as everyone should. You should know what's going on in your community. You should know what's going on in politics. You should know what's going on in the world. You should know what's going on and how are they voting, what the case is about. I heard affirmative action has been abolished everywhere. It has not been abolished everywhere. It's dealing with college-based admission. Does it have the possibility to be abolished? Yes, it does. It has a possibility to be impacting every aspect that it currently works in. It doesn't now, but we will see different language that will come down about how we communicate and market different events that we do or different programs that we have that have been typically based on giving opportunities for those that don't have opportunities. Disadvantaged, socioeconomically disadvantaged. We'll see that wording now. So we do have to pay attention and listen and understanding what affirmative action was set up for, what is this ruling about, and what is to come. I get everybody in the uproar, but will your uproar stop when it comes down to election day? Will your uproar stop when it comes down to when you having considerations of talking at tables and hearing the conversations people are having around these topics and you don't say nothing when you're at the table? I want your uproar to continue as we are talking about this topic and having different things going on. It interests me. The Supreme Court. I wasn't shocked by the ruling. I wasn't, because this is not the first time this case has went to the Supreme Court. It's not the first time that this case has even been discussed at the Supreme Court. There's been cases since 1970 that has been brought up about going against what has been called racial conscious admissions as we connect it to affirmative action. There's been so many cases that have been brought up to talk about how they feel this unfair. And I've heard the analogy from others, cultures saying, I lost the opportunity because they gave it to a black person to fill a quota. And I'm against that. I don't believe giving it to me just because I'm black. Give it to me because I earned it. Allow me to compete. Allow me to stand toe-to-toe with anyone, any color and race, and look at my quality of what I've done and let me in there. But that wasn't happening. Qualified candidates are being turned down because of their race. And now a door has been opened to allow that to happen again, because you can hide behind and saying, I looked at the quality of the candidate and this candidate was not as qualified as others. But were they? Or were they not? What evidence, what do we determine that? How do we keep EDI still active on our campuses when we're talking about how do we make racial diverse populations and inclusive environments? And don't think this doesn't just have a pack with race. This has a pack with gender. This has a pack with other things that include disabilities. This has an impact to hit not just, as some people may say, as they think about diversity, black and white. It's not just a black issue. It's a diversity issue and a concern. We limit sometimes diversity to being a black-white issue, which I can't stand. It's way more than that. You have to deal with disabilities, like I said. You deal with gender. You deal with other aspects of EDI. What impact will this have? I'm not sure. I don't know as it goes down the line, but I know that, We need to have these kind of discussions, and you need to be talking about and doing the research about this and understand the cases and understand what really happened with the ruling. We also didn't talk about some other rulings that came down along with this. There were other positive rulings that affected Native Americans. There was voting rights that came about this in some of the discussions that happened at this ruling, but we focused on one aspect of the ruling. And I don't say not focus on what was said, but please do your research and understand what's going on. I'm seeing so many narratives posted on social media about affirmative action is wrong. Now, we're not getting into college. We're still getting in college. Now, where are we getting in and how are we getting in and how universities will have to operate to make sure that they're meeting other requirements, because though this ruling came down that we cannot use race in some aspects as a deciding factor for admissions, it doesn't negate some of the other requirements that we have at higher educations to make sure we're having racially diverse populations and programs. So now, how do we market? How do we go about things? How do we continue? One thing that has happened back in the 90s, and I will definitely tell you, I've seen this experience, is that a lot of funding was thrown away to recruit and entice minorities to go to different institutions to keep them diverse. But be very careful of that as well, because sometimes we throw money at situations and say, oh, we're going to bring all these diversity to our campuses, but we don't have the infrastructure to support those students that we bring in. I'm not asking you to lower your standards when you're bringing us in. I'm not asking you to just throw money in the situation. I'm asking you to give us what we are qualified for, what we're worth, what we work for. Make sure we're on the same playing field. Though my father may not play golf with your father, but my grades are there. My extracurricular activities are there. My essay is there. I should not have a passed up on a mission just because of somebody else's connection. And I'm not saying that's always the case for everybody. I don't want people to think that I think that, everybody that besides people of color get in because of who they know. But that does happen a lot. It does. You saw a scandal earlier, a couple years ago, about scandals with celebrities and other individuals being able to buy their students' way into universities and being able to have money for them to be on programs, going on to different athletic programs on a full ride that could have went to someone else who actually does that sport, who actually is expert in the area and not just sitting on the road partying and getting into a program when there's somebody that could have really been doing something with that opportunity that's been given. So, yeah, the Supreme Court ruling, it's got a lot of facets to it and what implication it can have. And I know that a lot of more information will come out about it, but I'm surprised that people were so shocked about it. It's just been rumbling around for a while. This case has been around for a while, and it's not the new to say, now it's coming up. No, it's not now coming up. It's been coming up. And we hear, a breaking news come across the screen, and we say, affirmative action has been ended, and it's some things we have to understand was clickbait too. How things are worded is to get people into reading the article, into clicking on it, into finding out more information. And it's way more to what happened there and what's going on now in education than just affirmative action is gone. Affirmative action is way bigger than just education. Affirmative action goes into other aspects as well. We've seen wonderful strides that's happening to ensure that other aspects of things that plays a role in dealing with affirmative actions have been in place. One thing about it, we had individuals that were being looked at differently or harassed or not able to get jobs or lost jobs because of what their hair looked like. Now we have the Crown Act. There's so many different components that came from affirmative action that allow us to still have things in place to make sure that we're supported. But we do need to start looking. We need to start recognizing. We need to start reading. So, do your research about the affirmative action. Read about the cases. I would definitely read about the cases and know a little bit more about what's going on. So that's my rant, my soliloquy on Supreme Court. You're probably guessing what's my next topic. And I only have three. I only have 3 topics, so this may not be a typical They Ain't Ready podcast, but I have 3 topics. So the second topic is, wonderful Florida. Florida. Um, wonderful Florida. Florida recently, the Florida State Board of Education's new standards included controversial language about how slaves develop skills in which some instances can be applied for their personal benefit. According to a 260-page document about the state's 2023 standard in social studies. It was posted by the Florida Department of Education. In other language, it has drawn that errors or some of the educators and some people are education advocates are concerned about that is teaching how Black people were also predators of violence during race massacres. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in Florida. DeSantis, we had discussions earlier. DeSantis was trying to defund EDI programs, which would affect a lot of institutions, could also affect historically Black fraternities and sororities. There is so much going on as of today. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated has now changed their convention from Orlando, Florida for 2025 is now moving to another location due to what's all going on in Florida. So, of course, no one should need an explanation of why I'm upset or concerned about or just irritated by a board deciding that slavery had personal benefits to African Americans and help them teach them a trade. Pretty much was saying they learned a trade, they learned some work. I didn't really have to do a lot of study on this topic part to talk about this, but let me explain something to you, forever who's listened to this. Okay? African Americans that came over here through the slave trade had a life, had a culture, had resources, had a way of life before slavery. Our lives did not start when we came to America. If you look at history, there are so many things that we have taken from other countries, I'm talking about America, and have used it to build this country. Resources, ideas, concepts, and the labor of African Americans or Blacks, whichever terminology you would like to use. When you say I personally benefit from, and I love they said could be applied for their personal benefit. Slavery ripped up homes and families. Men were used as breeding tools. Women were used as concubines for slave owners. We have a people that don't even know their lineage unless they trace it, and still sometimes may not be able to trace it. Other cultures can kind of trace where their people are from, some type of lineage. We are one people where our culture, our heritage was ripped from us. We were not allowed to celebrate. We were not allowed to gather. We were not allowed to communicate. We were not allowed to learn, read, or even practice religion. Oh, let me take that back. We were allowed to practice the religion at pieces based on what was given to us. Now, when I say that I am definitely a God-fearing woman and I believe in Jesus Christ. So I'm not talking about when people say Christianity is the white man's religion. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there was pieces of it taught to us in order to make sure that we didn't have the full understanding of the Word of God. Now, I'm going to leave that as there. So pieces was given to us, not the full knowledge of the Word of God. Enough was given to us to make us feel that we need to be thankful for our slave masters. We need to be interpreted wrong and given to us in pieces that was misinterpreted, misconstrued, and was not the full context of the word that was given. If you understood, even in biblical history, there was where Africa was mentioned in the Word of God. So when I say all that, I'm not saying anything about Christianity. What I'm saying is there was a lot of things that came up. There was a lot of things that came through slavery. And one thing I would say is don't ever think that slavery benefited me personally. We're just a resilient people. We are people to know how to make do. We are people that survived and strived and were able to grow. Where other cultures were conquered, other cultures were also put in slavery as well, but we survived and we were able to strive. To have this propaganda be communicated to the next generation and to have people think to put it to a place that slavery is okay, it's disheartening to me and concerning to me, because one thing I've learned that if we do not know our history, if we don't understand the context of it, if we don't understand where things are from, the origin of it, we are likely to repeat it in some form or fashion. America benefited from slavery. America benefited slavery for having workforce. America benefited from slavery from having resources of skills that was learned and different technique that was learned that has been used and patented and have gone on to make millions of dollars. America was built on the financial resources that having free labor offered it. Why did it take so long for slavery to be abolished? Because of the financial impact that it would have with America. If you understand some things even now, you will still see some things that the South has not recovered from the abolishment of slavery. That lets you know, as long as slavery has been abolished, how fruitful the financial gain of slavery was to the South. To still not officially have recovered from loss of that free labor. I'm not saying that the South is a third world country, but if you look at the economic structure, they have not still recovered from it. Never has some not come with a civil war because they took a hit, because mind you, it costs money to do a war. And then you lose the war and you lose your free labor to recoup your money from the war. So let's get clear who benefited and who had personal benefit. Let's put that personal benefit from what happened in slavery. I'm not shocked because I've been seeing the rumblings and stuff like this coming from Florida for a while. But we have to be very careful of the narrative. And I don't want no state around to get so hard to be like, oh, Florida, how is Florida? There is some teachings of this in other states, even up north, as they would call it, northern states, is being taught some of the same type of propaganda about what slavery is. Sometimes slavery is not even taught. I had a friend who was talking to me, and he mentioned somebody asked about why would African Americans want reparations? Why is it such a big deal? Slavery was so long ago. Slavery, why do they need reparations? If you look through history, groups of races that had gone through something similar to us, like the Holocaust, internment camps, different things like that, have had reparations. We are one of the only people that have gone through what we've gone through and have not received any type of reparations. And then when we did build, when we did start our own, we did have our own culture and did have our own prosperity period, which is called the Reconstruction. Because I want to let you know, we were in office way before the 1960s. We were in office right after slavery. Reconstruction era, you saw the fulfillment of many political positions by African Americans, blacks. We were in political office. Many times African Americans were Republicans. If you understand, if you notice a little bit about what the Republican and Democratic Party was, many times we were more Republican. And that's a whole nother podcast to talk about what happened with the switch and why you see more. It seems like more are Democratic than Republican now, but we were Republicans and we were winning office, and then came Jim Crow. So I don't want you to think that we weren't even in political office till the 60s. We was in political office. We were making change. But when we did have our own, we did have our responsibility, we did have our area, we saw massacres. So I want to talk about these things where it says that we were the perpetrators of some of these massacres and things, and we were the aggressor. There were so many massacres that have been mentioned. If you name a few, the 1906 Atlanta race riots, the 1919 Washington D.C. race riots. But I want to talk about two particular massacres that we've seen movies about, we've seen TV shows about, and I want to make sure the narrative is clear. In 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, from May 31st to June 1st, 1921. In Greenwood, a neighborhood Tulsa was known as Black Wall Street. It was due to its prosperity as a black community of entrepreneurs, professionals, and businesses. It was one of the most affluent African American communities in the United States at that time. So if you understand, anybody remember FUBU? It was for us, by us. That's what Tulsa was. It was considered Black Wall Street. And what happened? It says the incident began when a young man named Derek Rowland was accused of assaulting a young woman named Sarah Page in the elevator. The details of what occurred in the elevator still remains in time unclear because they don't know all the details because it was just two of them in the elevator. But the incident led to his arrest. Rumors spread and a white mob gathered outside the courthouse demanding his lynching. A group of black residents are arriving at the courthouse to protect him, and a confrontation occurred between the white mob and the black residents, resulting in gunfire. The white mob then launched a full-scale attack on Greenwood District, looting, burning homes, and businesses. Law enforcement did little to stop the violence, and in some cases, they actively participated in the destruction. Over the course of the massacre, hundreds of black residents were killed, thousands were left homeless as their homes and businesses were burned to the ground. The full extent of the casualties remain uncertain due to the suppressed information and lack of official records from that time. Why there's not a lot of information? Because how many of you can say you heard about the Tulsa massacres till probably about, I'll give it to be gracious, 10 years ago? If you didn't study Black history, if you weren't in a Black history class talking about this, or by chance had a teacher that brought this up in a history class, even dealing with finance, dealing with entrepreneurship, whatever, you weren't hearing about this. So this case just started making news when we started hearing about TV shows that highlighted different movies that highlighted about what was going on in Tulsa. But a white mob led the effort. I'm not even getting to what happened in the elevator. So that remains unclear. Okay? But the massacre that happened in Tulsa was by a white mob that burnt it down. It took decades for us to get back to have any areas that were like this, and we still have not reached to that level of a community to this date. So, as you can see, what narrative we are communicating, the narrative can be twisted so much if you say we're the perpetrators. Now, if he did do something to that woman, I don't know. I don't believe so because they keep saying it's unclear. But that's information that's been suppressed. Information that was burned, information that was not allowed, information destroyed, information of records not kept during that time. But let's go to the other massacre that I really want to highlight, the 1923 Rosewood Massacre. The Rosewood Massacre occurred January 1923 in Rosewood, a predominantly black community in Florida. It began with an incident in a nearby town where a white woman claimed she was assaulted by a black man. The woman's accusation quickly escalated racial tensions in the region. As rumored of the allegations spread, a white mob formed and targeted the black community of Rosewood. Many residents fled to a nearby swamp and woods to escape the violence. The white mob burned down most of the buildings in Rosewood, leaving the community in ruin. The massacre resulted in deaths of several black residents, and the survivors faced displacement, hardship as they tried to rebuild their lives elsewhere. The Rosewood and the Tulsa massacres had long-lasting effects on surviving descendants, and it became another example of racial violence and systematic racism in the United States. Both of these massacres were largely suppressed and downplayed in historical records for many years. It was only later decades that efforts were made to bring these things to light. And we were the perpetrators. And we were the reason that it happened. Clearly, this is in history. But we now want to say that we were the perpetrators. Why does that keep us the perpetrator? What does that mean if you make us the perpetrators? What does that put in the image of everyone? What does that put in the image of when we have a young man walking across the street with a hoodie and some Skittles? What does that put in their mind that there is always going to be someone that's the perpetrator? What does it say about our black men in the society to make people think that they need to cross the other side of the street because they could be dangerous? All these things that's being put in mind helps perpetrate an image that we have seen has been violence on top of violence. Why is there so many things to say about? We've said Black Lives Matter. All lives matter to me, and that's it. But all lives matter to me. But let me say why I say this. All lives matter. And if we realize that really as a people, as a whole America, realize all lives matter, there wouldn't even be a need for Black Lives Matter because you were automatically included. But we don't. Our lives don't matter. It's only the lives that matter that is important to us. And who doesn't matter? So it depends on who you talk to. Some may say Black Lives Matter. Some may say White Lives Matter. Some might say Blue Lives Matter. All lives should matter. We're all a people. But that's not the case here. What these things and what's going on in Florida and what's being talked about is to perpetrate a narrative of the fear the black person, the fear the black man. They're insignificant. There's no need for it. And why I'm angry about that is because why can we go back when we should be going forward? What sparked all this? I know a lot of things sparked this to me. I think a lot of growth and development that we're doing. I think a lot of having Obama as president, all the things that the growth and development that we thought was so positive, I think has angered those that wanted us to stay in our shell, wanted us to stay unnoticed, wanted us to stay where we were at. And as we grow and develop, this has become a problem. So now we're going to teach the next generation these lies. We're going to teach the next generation this misinformation. And we know how society is. Once misinformation goes out there, it is hard to correct. Anytime that a narrative is, if you can broadcast, if somebody says that I did something, if I hurt somebody, that narrative is going to spread like wildfire. But when they find me innocent, it's going to be on page 36 in the back of the paper. And it's a little blurb to say I'm innocent. So, the real narrative will never be discussed. The real truth won't be discussed because we have propagated this whole lie. Lie. This ain't the first massacre. This ain't the last. If we don't do something about it, if we don't stand up for it, I'm very proud of Alpha Phi Alpha, the men of Alpha Phi Alpha, for changing their convention convocation to another place. Money talks. So what are we going to do? How are we going to speak up about Florida, about how we feel? Are we going to go and kick it there? Or are we going to show and let them know that we do not appreciate what they're teaching and how they're communicating as propaganda? I will tell you that they have seen an impact on lower tourism because of what's going on. Affect the pockets. We can talk the talk all day and nobody cares about what we see on social media. Nobody cares how we may vent and say all that stuff. What affects people's change and what affects people's minds and what them realize they have to do something is money. How you know that's the case? Because when George Floyd's situation happened and the riots were happening, I had emails coming from every company that I don't even know I signed up with, having their whole wonderful PR statement talking about Black Lives Matter. They jumped on the bandwagon because they didn't want to take your dollar. Why? Because we are one of the top consumers. We don't even realize sometimes the power that we have. Our money speaks. So sometimes what we say out of our lips may not mean much, but what we take out of our pocket does. Watch where you spend your money. Why do we go to companies and spend money for companies that don't respect us or treat us with any respect? Why would I go someplace and allow them to disrespect me and to continue to disrespect me and say that slavery may have benefited me personally because I was able to learn a trade or a tool or something in that time period that I was not allowed to be free, that I was changed up, that my women were raped, that my men were used as studs, where families were ripped apart, where I was lynched on a tree, where I have to hear stories, where a mother has to bring her son's body back to Chicago and see his mutilated body and have it displayed for the world. A product of slavery. Because people start saying the mindset that we were not individuals, we were not people. We were cattle. We were worthless. We were second-class citizens. And in some cases, not even second-class citizens because they treated their animals better than us. Why would we do that? So watch where we spend our money. That's all I can say. I like Florida. Even thought about moving to Florida. But I'm watching where I spend my money. Yeah, my little dollars may not matter by themselves. But our collective dollars pack a punch. So my last topic on today, and I tossed and turned about bringing this topic up because there's a lot of jokes, there's a lot of memes, there's a lot of things, but this concerns me, and I had to bring it up. So, recently, about a week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, a young lady named Carly Russell went missing. The young lady leaves work, picks up some food on the way home, and she says she sees a toddler walking on the side of the road unattended. She calls 911 and explains that to them. She then calls her sister and tells her sister what's going on, and her sister hears a scream, and Carly's gone. When the police arrive, they find her wig and some other personal items in the car. She is missing, and word spreads throughout social media, and we rise to occasion to make sure the word is out there. And a couple of days later, she returns home, and we assumed she was abducted. That was the story she was abducted. And recently, we found out the news that broke that it comes to light that there was no toddler, there was no abduction. I'm not here to do jokes. I'm not here to talk about anything else. I don't know what's going on with Carly. We don't know. I believe there's a lot going on there, and I do pray for her. And people may say, "Well, why would you?" She did these lies. Something has to be strongly going on there if you would do something to this extreme. I've heard narratives about boyfriends and different things like that. It goes beyond that. There's something else going on there, and I pray for her. But my concern is this: around 2020, the last estimate I found, 364,000 people have gone missing in the United States. 40% of those missing people are people of color. We don't keep detailed record of people of color or by gender or people going missing. But there has been a lot of discussion about media, about how we leverage the media to research and go after and cover the missing Black women. There was discussion about this some years back when there was Black women missing in Atlanta, and was talking about a lot of Black women are missing. There's a lot of women being sex trafficked, and there's a thing called the missing white woman syndrome. And if you don't know what that is, that's a term that has been coined dealing with media disproportionately broadcasting about white women missing compared to black women missing. Why I bring this up? I'm not here to talk about the young lady because that's a young lady. But this is a concern to me because we're not getting the notoriety. Young black women are going missing, and parents are having to plead, beg, and try to find some avenue for people to talk about it. And my concern with this is I don't want people to start thinking of every black woman missing as a hoax. We have issues going on, and I'm not saying that other races are not going missing. I'm not coming to talk about not publicizing no other race. Publicize anybody that's missing, but do it fairly. We have black women out here leaving. We have started, there's been a hashtag campaign that we've been doing for a while recently called Say Her Name hashtag, or hashtag missing black woman, or whatever way we can get notoriety or attention. Missing girls, black girls missing. Whatever way we can get notoriety. And it shouldn't be a press or pull to get notoriety. But now with this, I don't want society or media or people or even us as a group to say, she probably lying. She probably somewhere. You know that Curly girl did that. Don't compare every situation to the same. I understand that this is a situation that looks negatively and whatever consequences come our way, that's her consequences. But we have women that are missing out here. We cannot afford not to look at every case based on the case, not based on precedent or who did it before. I'm worried. I don't want us to go back where we take it for granted and say, oh, she's missing, so what? Oh, she's not there, so what? What's going on here, so what? I don't want that. What I'm concerned about is we need to keep going on and looking at these black women. We need to still advocate for them. There hasn't been a neglect of society. I don't believe in cracking jokes on this. This is not funny to me. You know, everybody doing funny things about the week. And I know we have comedy relief sometimes on things happening in society, but it's not funny to me. It's not funny what's going on with her, and it's not funny about black women being missing. What the concern is that we have to speak out and give the same attention. Media outlets, social media. If you see about some black person missing, I'd rather us look into it and not look into it and something really happens to her. You know, I'm preparing to go on a trip, and I had to have a conversation. Somebody had a conversation with me, and we had to talk about what happens if I get taken. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to be sex trafficked because I may not be because I'm not the age group. But what if I go to another country and I get taken? What media coverage is going to be about me because I'm an American in another country? Will I get the same media attention as somebody else? You know, I have a fear. We talk about, I was telling somebody, and I wasn't joking, but I was telling them, I said, I want to be very cautious because I don't know what America would do about if I go missing. Would they look after me? Would they go for me? Who am I? I'm not a celebrity. You know, I know my family and my friends, and I know my people will go to the ends of the earth to try to find me. But that's a concern we have as people. You know, we got to be cautious. We have to do these extra checks. Everybody should do these extra checks. But what media attention will happen for me? So I don't want us, we make the jokes, we make the comments, we make the conversation about her, and let's get the narrative off her. What we really need to talk about is telling us people not to go back and not to communicate. And it's another component to this too. It's talked about a child being on the side of the road. People may not pull over. Well, you said it was a hoax. Why wouldn't they pull over to help somebody? Because what happens is sometimes we only remember part of the story. Like I said, I said the narrative gives out there a certain part. Everybody doesn't get all the information. And then we hear one thing, say, I ain't going to pull over. I ain't going to be like that girl that got abducted. And somebody may not know the full story and may say, yeah, that's right. And the correction may not be there to say, no, that actually did not happen. So how do we live as a people? How do we move forward? Don't look at the situation and say, I ain't about to do that. She probably, no, that's somebody's child. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's mother. That's somebody's wife, girlfriend. That's somebody's sister. I speak up about it. Please still continue to look out. I'm concerned. That concerned me more because people are going to be passive. I don't know if I'm going to advocate like that. I know I'm not going to do all that. I know I'm not going to say all that. Because, that girl. And we I've seen comments like comparing her to Jussie Smollett. Sorry, I said his name wrong. But comparing him to him. And it's like, Okay, that's a two situations, whatever. But what about the girl that is truly missing? What about the girl that's been truly abducted? What about the girl that's truly not here and no one knows where she's at? Who's going to speak out for her? Who's going to be the voice for her? Are we going to compare her and say she's probably that same way? Or are we going to be an advocate and really push the media and use our resources that we can to help try to bring her home? Fast action. If you know anything about when someone goes abducted, the first 24 hours, some say the 48 hours, but really the first 24 hours are critical. A lot of clues can be lost in our first 24 hours. A lot of things to help us find that person can be lost in that first 24 hours. Don't stop. That's my concern. So on today, I had to get some things off my chest. The Supreme Court ruling where everybody's up in an uproar. I do agree to be concerned, but understand more about it and watch how you vote. And then slavery, watch where you put your money and watch where you send your kids. Watch who's teaching your kids. That's another thing. Watch who teach your kids. I live by expect what I expect. So even with my team, I'm a director. I tell them I expect what I expect. So I expect that the teachers are going to do what they're going to do. But I will inspect to make sure they're teaching my kids what they're supposed to. So I have conversations. I'll say, how's today? What's going on? What's happening here? How's this? And learn. Because you don't know what narrative could be spoken to your kids. Anything could be said to your kids. And you want to make sure they're getting the right education. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I know it's not typical. I know it's a lot of information. I know maybe more not as funny. But this is some things I had to get off my chest. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at They Ain't Ready Podcast. You can contact me there. My inbox is open. If you feel like you want to say something to me, please do. I have no problem with that. Just know I have a strong opinion. I have no problem standing behind my opinion. So let's come in love and grace. You can come with your strong opinion, but come in love and grace, because I don't want to have to match energies. And secondly, I got a taping coming up, y'all. I have a live taping coming up September 30th. Yes, I had to postpone it. There was a lot going on. It was too much things going on, and I wanted to make sure that I did it right for you guys, and had to take care of stuff at the venue. And so now September 30th is going to be an amazing day. So we're going to have the podcast taping. You're going to come to it. It's going to be amazing. And it's at the Rev and David Logan Center on the campus of University of Chicago in Hyde Park, Chicago, Illinois. You can check my page. I will be posting also the link to register. But come out. It's going to be a good conversation. I'm going to have panelists. We're going to talk about the topics. We're going to have some fun in there too. But it's about having those conversations. So as I leave you out today, like I always say, please remember to have those conversations that many are not ready to have, because they need to have them today. I hope this sparked you to have some kind of conversation, research, look into things, study, find more information out, and know these topics. Don't just be on social media just plastering or sharing everything. Do your studies and read and understand why it's important to speak up and speak loud. So I'm unmasked. I'm unfiltered. It's me. These are my conversations. I ain't sugarcoating how I feel. I'm going to say what I got to say. And more conversations are to come. So the host has spoken. Y'all have a good night. Take care.
White dominance. This is my white dominance. You are now witnessing the incredible.